A century of Irish life is about to be dragged out of the shadows and put under a spotlight, messy, haunting, and uncomfortably honest. Dublin Gothic is not just another play, it's a sprawling, unsettling love letter to Dublin's forgotten people, and this is where things start to get really interesting. Dublin Gothic is the latest work from playwright Barbara Bergin, an ambitious theatrical saga that tracks 100 years of life in Ireland's capital through a large ensemble of 20 performers on the Abbey Theatre stage this November. It dives into the lives that usually stay on the margins, weaving together ordinary moments, missed chances, and long-buried secrets to tell a story that feels both strangely unfamiliar and deeply recognizable. At its heart, it is an epic portrait of a city and its people, built from the quiet, often overlooked details of everyday existence. The journey to bringing Dublin Gothic to life has been shaped, and sometimes stalled, by time itself. Barbara first felt the urge more than 15 years ago to write what she calls a myth-challenging story about so-called losers, the people history tends to ignore or simplify. Instead of great heroic arcs, she wanted to craft an everyday epic covering over a century, filled with moments that slip away, choices never made, and truths kept hidden for a lifetime. The result is a narrative that emerges from the half-lit corners of Dublin, capturing a city that is at once eerily strange and intimately familiar. But here's where it gets controversial. What happens when a nation's story is retold from the perspective of those who never got to be the heroes? When Barbara first started sketching out the idea, the characters seemed to appear faster than she could write them, each one demanding space in the story. The project quickly outgrew a simple format and looked, at first, like it was destined to become a television series, or maybe a radio drama. She even ended up with a full TV outline, a draft of a radio script, and an astonishing 158 characters jostling for attention in her imagination. Yet the projects in those mediums never quite came together, leaving her feeling like she herself might be the biggest loser in the whole enterprise. The story refused to disappear, though. It lingered quietly in a drawer and in the back of her mind as the years slipped by. That long, stop-start development process, with all its frustrations, dead ends, and personal losses, eventually became part of the DNA of the play itself. Every delay and detour fed back into the world of Dublin Gothic, deepening its sense of lives suspended in time and people wrestling with circumstances beyond their control. Instead of being a setback, the waiting became almost thematic, a reflection of how real people's stories often unfold slowly, unevenly, and against the grain of neat narrative arcs. And this is the part most people miss. Sometimes the making of the work and the story it tells become mirrors of each other. A key turning point came when Barbara crossed paths with Jessie Weaver, who was working as a dramaturg at the Abbey Theatre at the time. She only had a partially formed idea of how this sprawling concept could exist on stage, but Jessie saw its potential and encouraged her to submit it for development. Over the following years, he remained one of the play's strongest advocates. Another crucial figure, Graham McLaren, was the first person to respond with a wholehearted, "I loved it" and, instead of the more cautious, "I loved it but," a subtle shift that can completely change a writer's confidence. Louise Stevens then stepped in with thoughtful, sensitive guidance that helped transform a sprawling, unwieldy web of storylines into something that could stand as a cohesive play. Once Barbara committed to writing Dublin Gothic as a stage piece, something important clicked into place. It quickly became clear that this was the form the story had been pushing toward all along. Live performance, with its immediacy and shared experience, was where these characters truly belonged. All those years of delay now looked less like wasted time and more like a long preparation. The act of finally writing the script turned from a burden into a joy, and she completed the first draft at the beginning of 2020. Then, suddenly, the pandemic struck, theaters went dark, and her epic about people out of step with their time seemed at risk of being swallowed by a global pause that made the idea of lost time feel eerily literal. When venues finally began to reopen and the world cautiously edged into a post-pandemic phase, Dublin Gothic found new momentum. Caitríona McLaughlin, the Abbey's artistic director, offered not just encouragement but a tangible vote of confidence by choosing to include the play in the theatre's program. For a project that had been waiting in the wings for so long, this decision was transformative, giving it a home that felt uniquely suited to its scale and ambition. Producer Ruth McGowan brought focused energy at pivotal stages of the process, while Selena O'Reilly and Emily Riley contributed insights and advice that Barbara describes as small treasures she will carry forward into her future work. Another vital piece of the puzzle was producer Craig Flaherty, whose skill in managing complex productions helped keep this large-scale project grounded and achievable. Mounting a play with a big cast, a long time span, and intricate emotional threads is no small feat. It needs someone who can hold the big picture while still caring about the tiny details. Craig's involvement helped ensure that the play's ambitious scope was translated into something practical and producible, rather than remaining a beautiful but impossible idea. In large ensemble work like this, strong producing is often invisible to the audience, but its impact is felt in every seamless transition on stage. If the script had been waiting patiently for its moment, it had also been waiting for the right director, the maestra, who could orchestrate all its elements with clarity and vision. That person turned out to be Caroline Byrne, whose role in shaping Dublin Gothic has been nothing short of central. During its development, her feedback combined generosity with rigor, pushing the material to be sharper, braver, and more emotionally honest. As rehearsals moved into full production mode, her creativity and leadership became a driving force behind how the play would look, sound, and feel in a live setting. Bold opinion: some plays simply do not work without the exact right director, and Dublin Gothic may well be one of them. Caroline's collaboration with her creative team has been key to solving the many practical and artistic challenges posed by such a complex story. How do you move across 100 years of history without losing the audience? How do you bring so many characters to life while keeping the emotional core clear? Through inventive staging, design choices, and careful attention to rhythm and pacing, the team has crafted a production that responds to the play's demands with flair and imagination. Their work tries to honor both the intimate human moments and the sweeping historical backdrop, ensuring that the piece feels grounded even as it spans generations. The long timeline of the play's creation, its delays, reversals, and moments of doubt, now echoes the themes that run through Dublin Gothic itself. Its characters wrestle with time as an adversary, pushing back against the villain of circumstance that threatens to define them. They attempt to rewrite their own narratives, sometimes failing, sometimes succeeding, but always driven by a fierce instinct to keep going. In this sense, the play becomes a tribute to persistence, to the simple yet radical act of standing up after a loss, facing the present, and trying, once again, to engage with the world. At its core, Dublin Gothic celebrates survival in all its quiet, unglamorous forms. Instead of focusing on grand triumphs, it honors the everyday courage it takes to keep living after disappointment, grief, or squandered opportunities. The characters may see themselves, or be seen by others, as losers, but they keep steering their own course as best they can, navigating through storms they did not choose. That perspective might spark debate: is it fair, or even useful, to label such people as losers at all, or is the play actually reclaiming the term to question how society decides who counts as a success? As audiences take their seats at the Abbey Theatre between November 22, 2025 and January 31, 2026 for the world premiere run of Dublin Gothic, they are effectively stepping aboard a ship helmed by these so-called outsiders. Viewers are invited not only to watch but to recognize parts of themselves in the characters' fears, compromises, and moments of bravery. The production promises an experience where humor, sorrow, and uneasy truths sit side by side, much like they do in real life. And this is where it gets truly provocative. By the end, will you feel that the losers of the story are the ones on stage, or the systems and myths that tried to erase them? So, what do you think? Should theater be retelling history from the vantage point of those on the margins, even if it challenges comforting national legends? Do you see the focus on losers as empowering, insulting, or something more complicated? Share your thoughts. Do you agree with this reframing of who gets to be at the center of an epic, or would you rather stories keep their traditional heroes?